Okay, so I'm gonna record the presentation that I given on Friday for those of you who have missed it, and for those of you who want to review it as you're revising your Antigone essays. All right, so the difference between revising and editing is that when you edit, you basically change grammatical mistakes, you capitalize words you forgot to capitalize, you add punctuation that you left out, or you take away punctuation that you put in where you shouldn't have. But oftentimes our papers require a little bit more, and they require revising, which means we actually have to change the content of our paper. And one of the main aspects I noticed to your papers this time is that your papers lack transitions. Most of them had a thesis, they were organized, but they didn't connect your ideas all the way. So one of the big skills we're going to work on as we revise these papers is adding transitions. So just a quick review, the first thing you need to do is make sure that you have organized your evidence, and you can organize it in various ways. Many of you organized it by time, so where it occurs in the play, like it happened first, this happened second. Other times you can organize by place. This essay is hard to organize by place simply because we have one place in the entire play. The other way you can organize it is ideas, and many of you will be writing an essay for history class this week, which asks you to trace the cause of the downfall of the Roman Empire. And that essay is a cause and effect essay, and so you would organize it like you would organize a cause and effect essay. Some of you did organize your paper this time by definition, where you talked about Aristotle's definition of a tragic hero, you explained what that was, and then you went on to talk about how Antigone or Creon fit that definition. You can also organize by analogy or compare and contrast. So then, the other way that we're going to work on is adding necessary transitions. So this is one of the aspects that you all really need to work on. And so we're going to look at a few examples. So transitions are meant to clarify and identify the path your paragraph intends to take. It works as a map. It tells the reader how your paper is organized. And so for each of these slides, I have an original and then I have a revision. And the original is going to have a claim and then it's going to have some evidence. The revision is going to add a transition between the claim to the evidence and then provide an analysis piece, which is what each of your cycles of claim data warrant should do. So we have the first one. Through examples in gesture and conversation, Dickens depicts Scrooge as miserly, stubborn, and pessimistic. For example, he keeps his door open so that he might keep an eye on his clerk. Through examples, and so that has a claim, and then it has the example. But the example doesn't tell us what part of the claim the author is going to be talking about. So now we move on to the revision. Through examples in gesture, conversation, Dickens depicts Scrooge as miserly, stubborn, and pessimistic. Scrooge displays his miserliness in his treatment of his employee. That one sentence transitions from that claim into the evidence so that we know the evidence that follows that sentence is going to be an example of Scrooge's miserliness. For example, he keeps his door open so that he might keep an eye upon his clerk. An eye always alert to anyone, including his clerk, freezing by the dying embers of his fire, who might be tempted to replenish the fire with an extra log or two. Sometimes you just need a phrase or a clause that will add enough information at the end of your topic sentence to lead you into the next idea. So in their original here, the Christmas dinner scene at Bob Cratchit's that Scrooge observes depicts the ideal family. Mrs. Cratchit is dressed in ribbons, which are cheap and make a goodly show for 6 pence. Now we don't know what the author intends for an ideal family. I might think an ideal family is a family who eats dinner together every night. You might think an ideal family is someone who, goes to the movies together every Saturday, or we all have definitions of what is ideal. It's a very abstract term. So we need an explanation of that abstract term. The Christmas dinner scene at Bob Cratchit's that Scrooge observes depicts the ideal family, a family that celebrates despite ill fortune, that encourages all its members to share in responsibility, that practices acts of selflessness. So now we expect that after this short phrase that introduces the next idea, will have something to do with a family that celebrates despite ill fortune. So then we can go into our example of how Mrs. Cratchit dresses in ribbons, which are cheap, to express her joy and celebration within her economic means. So you also should begin your sentences after the topic sentence in order to indicate how you're going to talk about your examples. So early in the novel, Winston Smith's resistance comes in the form of a private rebellion, both psychological and physical. Winston begins writing in his diary, recording his disdain for Big Brother. This is actually from 1984 by George Orwell. I know a lot of you have read Animal Farm by him, and so this is another novel that he had written. And so now we know, we don't know how the paper is going to be organized because our writer hasn't told us. If we look at the revision and we look at the bolded term, Winston's physical, isolated rebellion first occurs, it tells us that he's first going to talk about physical rebellion and then when it first happened. So we know that now it's going to be organized by time, by timeline. Okay. Now, another aspect that I noticed in your papers is you're not doing what we call maintaining the topic string. So for instance, if you're writing about women in ancient Greece, you have to keep talking about women in ancient Greece. You can't just say women in ancient Greece in your thesis statement and never mention it again until the end of your essay and talk about Antigone the whole time. You have to keep mentioning what's significant about Antigone within talking about women in ancient Greece. So to do that, you need to use keywords from the topic. You repeat those keywords using synonyms or pronouns, and that helps you maintain the topic string. So let's look at this original example. In The Lord of the Flies, Jack's proud nature leads to the destruction of order and authority on the island. The conflagration represents the boy's only hope to leave the island. Burns out due to his lack of supervision, a careless decision that commences the power struggle with Ralph. Ralph is the elected chief on the island, and he complains about Jack hunting, even though Jack says that we needed meat, an action defying Ralph's authority and showing that Jack believes he knows what is best for the boys. Later at that night's assembly, the boys are disorderly and Ralph attempts to gain control. He even shouts at Jack, "You're breaking the rules," to which Jack responds, "Who cares?" clearly showing his apathy towards Ralph's power and his arrogance believing that he made the right decision. Now, from the topic sentence, in Lord of the Flies, Jack's proud nature leads to the destruction of order and authority on the island, we know that the topic is about Jack being proud. However, we hardly hear about Jack's proud nature in the rest of the paragraph. So, in order to make a better paragraph, we have to keep repeating about pride, Jack's pride. We have to hear more about it. So if you look at the revision, we have in Lord of the Flies, Jack's proud nature leads to the destruction of order and authority on the island. Jack's pride first manifests itself when the conflagration, representing the boy's only hope to leave the island, burns out due to his lack of supervision, a careless decision that commences the power struggle in Ralph. In explaining his course of action, Jack tells Ralph that we needed meat, an action defying Ralph's authority and showing that Jack believes he knows what is best for the boys. In response to Jack's continued rebellion, Ralph, at a nightly assembly, shouts at Jack, "You're breaking the rules," to which Jack responds, "Who cares?" clearly showing his apathy towards Ralph's power and his arrogance as he believes that he made the right decision. So we can see in this paragraph that we've talked about his proud nature his pride, why he took the course of action that he took, and his continued rebellion, and again, his arrogance. All of those connect to the idea that his proud nature leads to the destruction of order and authority. So we're going to practice, and you can watch the next video that will actually talk about the practice sheets that you were given in class. All right, thank you, and I hope this helps.